The United States of America is going to produce 15.88 billion bushels of corn in 2025 on about 95.5 million acres at 181 bushels per acre. Those are the expectations in May of 2025. Where is all of this corn going to go? It's a record amount. I'm talking to the CEO of the National Corn Growers Association in this episode of The Business of Agriculture. Are you looking for productive efficiencies in growing higher yielding, better performing crops? New Fields Ag provides a complete portfolio of biological products focused on you, the farmer. Visit newfieldsag.com for more information to help you farm better. Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Business of Agriculture. Got a great one for you today because they're always great ones, and we're always talking about business, and we're talking about the business of agriculture. One thing that you know if you listen to this show, we always actually ask the hard questions. I'm going to ask them right now. Where in the hell is all of this corn going to go? That's the big question. I've got Neil Caskey. He's the CEO of the National Corn Growers Association on here. The numbers I just gave you in the open are accurate per the prediction. Remember, these are based on WASDE numbers, World Agricultural Supply Demand export numbers. And you know what? These are big numbers. We also, right now, we're recording this in mid-May. So by the time you're hearing this, things may have changed. But we are cementing some deals with foreign countries about taking, for instance, ethanol, sustainable aviation fuel, looms as a potential product of agriculture, as a potential export commodity. We are in the midst of hashing out trade deals. India, for crying out loud. So I thought, you know what, Neil, please come on here and talk to me about where this corn is going to go and what's going on in the world of trade. So where do you want to start? You want to start with the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, those are big numbers. And so when you reached out to me, Damian, on Monday to see if we could have this conversation, I was actually in the middle of a cornfield that had just been planted. I'll tell you that it was nice. And I've been to several different states over the last few weeks. Most recently, Nebraska. The corn's planted. It's dry out there, man. It's already summer. It's 90 degrees. It's windy and really hot. They need a lot of rain. A couple weeks previously, I was in southern Illinois and through southern Indiana and Kentucky, where it's been just nothing but rain. And coincidentally, our president, we're in outside of St. Louis, Missouri, in Chesterfield. Our president, coincidentally, farms across the river from St. Louis and in Waterloo, Illinois, and he struggled to be in the field at all. So it really is a tale of two different planting season for our growers. But wherever I go and whoever I talk to, including my board of 15 different corn farmers from around the land, they ask that same question: where is this corn going to go? We are expecting, whether they're wrestling with too much water or not enough right now. We've all come to realize that between the tools, the products, and the producers themselves, that they're going to win the day, and we're going to have a big crop once it's all said and done.
Well, there's the technology. We've been around this game for a number of years, and it's always the weather scare, and then there's the weather trade that happens, et cetera. But when you start talking about the technology that's in those bags of seed corn, when you start talking about the technology that's in these pieces of equipment, and you start talking about the know-how and the knowledge in the year 2025 compared to certainly 100 years ago or even just 20 years ago. So, yeah, we might have some weather challenges, but barring an absolute catastrophe, 1988 repeat or 2012 repeat, or 83, I think, was one of the years that was a terrible flooding year. But the point is, even then, we're probably going to have plenty of corn. So I guess let's go first with the exciting news about trade. One of the things you put on your LinkedIn was that we're opening up India. I think I'd like to cover India first because, to my knowledge, India is almost insignificant in terms of an ag export destination for the United States. No way insulting India, just pointing out that as a customer of United States ag, it's a blip on the radar at best. Am I right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so we were heartened by the attention that India is getting from the administration. Obviously, we've seen that in trips to the White House. We've seen that, and I guess a couple weeks ago, our own vice president went over to India, to obviously improve the relationship and hopefully walk away with some good deals that will help grow the American economy. And specifically for us, we're talking about agriculture and corn. And so, we sell a little bit of ethanol right now into India. About $400 million worth of ethanol currently, and we're shut out because of they protect their own there, and so they've done that for some time. And I think that's kind of what we're up against. They banned the importation of GM products. That's going to be a really big barrier that we face as we kind of head down this path. But we are very optimistic right now as we're looking at a very large crop, and that we need more places to sell this corn, and India would be a fantastic place where we can grind that corn here in the U.S. in the Midwest, the Corn Belt, and then we can ship it via as a ethanol finished product over to obviously over to a country like India. We see that as about a $750 million opportunity in year one. That is going to be obviously good for them. They have a lot of clean air issues over there that they're focused on, and we have a ready-made solution right here in America's heartland that will help them do that. And so, that is, as we look out at another big crop this year and likely, the next few years, I mean, that is one way that we can begin to chip away at that mountain of corn that we're going to produce here in the U.S.
So India, a few things on that front, Neil. India has proclaimed themselves to be self-sufficient in terms of agriculture and food production. I've always questioned that. How is it that 1.3 billion Indians, it's essentially the same country population size as China, within a give or take of a multiple of a couple percent, right? China is bringing in, half of the soybeans that we export go to China, not to mention all of the soybeans they grab out of Brazil, various other countries. How is it that India is self-sufficient? I have questioned that. I think that that's posturing because, as you point out, they are protectionist, just like many countries are, protecting their own, but also I think they protect their own interests. Don't they take a certain amount of Australian product? Don't they take a certain amount of other grain products off of that part of the world that we've never been privy to?
I mean, they have to. I mean, to your point, I mean, they're an incredibly large society that obviously they got one of the largest dairy herds in the planet, and so just think about the feeding needs for that segment alone, and so when they have just these restrictions on modern technologies, I mean, there's no way that they can supply enough feed and food to be self-sufficient. And so they know that, and hopefully that is hopefully that will kind of compel them to take a long hard look at some of the restrictions that don't allow the U.S. to help them solve some of their problems.
They're a little bit in a catbird seat in that if there's a spat between the United States and China, there sits India saying, hey, we got 1.3 billion people, we got a lot of consumers, we got an ascending economy. Not certainly at the ascendant pace that China's was 20 plus years ago, but still, you got 1.3 billion people. It seems like they're waiting around for others to come and court them to make a deal. But certain international goings on have sort of forced them to move a little faster. They moved faster with the UK, former colonial power UK, and it seems like maybe this bodes well for the United States ag sector because, like you said, they've got dairy cows, they got a beef herd. A third of their country is allegedly vegetarian, but they feed water buffalo. They milk water buffalo. Isn't that right?
They might, yeah.
But how are you optimistic? $750 million of ethanol sales sounds like a neat deal. If the country of Luxembourg bought it. $750 million of ethanol being sold to a country with 1.3 billion. It's like a piss in the ocean. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a whole big deal here, Neil. It doesn't seem like we moved the needle much. Is
Yeah,
it?
I mean that's year one, and so I'm like if we kind of if they were to pull the lever on that, I mean those are the types of results that we could see in year one and would expect to expand from there. Yeah, I mean obviously that isn't gonna, I mean that's not gonna get it done for us or them, but it's got to, it's got to start somewhere, and so so that's some of the modest estimates, that we have been sharing with the administration and others that are trying to move us in that direction. That this isn't, these aren't kind of hypothetical things. We talk about trade being good for farmers or trade being good for corn farmers in particular. I mean, we're trying to provide them with very specific results that we can expect and tomorrow, if we were able to get to that point.
Well, like you said, to feed those vast herds of animals that are in India, not to mention the humans, it seems to me that they could be picking up corn from us, and it seems to me that beyond ethanol, that there's a heck of a lot more potential there.
For sure. And so they have some other just odd restrictions that don't allow us to sell co-products like our DDGs that would, a high protein feed source that could help feed that incredible, that massive herd of dairy cows there. They have it categorized as a living modified organism. So for whatever reason they arrived at that conclusion, I couldn't tell you. Again, it boils down to wanting to protect their own, and so you come up with a clever reason to shut out our DDGs when we can help them feed that herd, and here we are. I think that is another. I say it's an easy solution for us. I mean, obviously, that's going to be a pretty big lift in any negotiation that hopefully will happen around the bend. But we think that we can sell a lot of DDGs over there as well.
Well, and also it seems like they would be ready for that. I mean, they're not an overfed society, right? Like here in the United States. So it seems to me that they could utilize that. I want to get into a couple more things about trade, and then we'll get into some other things about where this corn's going to go with Neil Caskey here, CEO of National Corn Growers Association. Before I do, I want to talk to you about why I'm wearing this shirt. I'm wearing this shirt here. It's Redox. It's from my friends at Redox. I want to remind you that with a new growing season underway, the superior nutrition from Redox bionutrients makes a major difference come harvest time. Redox provides carefully sourced nutrients that are combined with biostimulants that have been proven winners since Darren Moon began this company 31 years ago. Redox has a new product called DiCap. DiCap provides unequaled stress defense, increasing your plant's respiration and antioxidant production. It's also a fantastic source of potassium and phosphorus. You want to find out more about the product DiCap? DiCap, that is. Enter redoxgrows.com into your browser and go check it out. DiCap is the name of the product. Redox Grows is the name of the company. Go to Redox, name of the company. Redoxgrows.com is the website. Go check it out. The European Union, not 1.3 billion people, but about 65 million. Got a trade agreement with them. We should. There's a lot in common with Europe, England, United Kingdom, if you will, and us. Is that going to be good for corn?
Yeah, we think so. The ironic, the irony behind that announced deal, I guess it was a week ago today, Thursday, is, we had scheduled a press event to talk about India a week ago today. And then so this is where we really wanted to kind of capitalize on some of the momentum that we've been seeing from the administration. I mentioned, obviously, the vice president was over there, and Secretary Lutnick was on CNN, and he specifically talked about the opportunities for corn in India. And we thought that was just a great opportunity to reinforce, what they're saying with some actual data and facts. And so we had that scheduled the night before. I think we all saw that the president on Truth Social said he had a major announcement, and I don't think we didn't know it was going to. There was speculation around the UK, and we certainly didn't have any clue that agricultural goods, I guess, were going to be the headlines of that deal. But we were happy to have had our news conference jacked by the president. And his announcement of UK. It specifically called out ethanol and beef, and so you can't obviously you can't produce beef without corn, and so that was a double play from where we sit in that
Yeah, so
announcement.
this could be really good. Now, granted, it's only 60 some million people population, but they're affluent. They can buy stuff. It's and the energy part of it. There's almost a suicidal push to climate crusade in Europe in general, but in the United Kingdom, ethanol should fit that, but maybe it doesn't because really their whole climate crusade could be just like a lot of places rewarding their friends with solar contracts and wind contracts. I don't know what's the outlook for ethanol to United Kingdom, Europe, Great Britain.
Yeah, I mean, looking pretty good. I mean, actually, coincidentally, the UK is our second largest foreign market for ethanol, and so what the president has proposed would so last year our estimates we sold about a $500 million worth of ethanol to the UK, and so what the president has what he announced would ramp that up to about $700 million worth of ethanol.
There we go. Little old England, 660 some million people is going to buy as much ethanol as 1.3 billion people in India.
That's a great point. So hey, maybe we should be relieved that we got scooped. Our India announcement got scooped by the UK.
I think we should be pissed at India, frankly, but that's a different story. Let's go back on the situation in United Kingdom on the beef front. Now we're going to take some of their beef stuff, and the ranchers always scream bloody murder. But remember, usually what happens is we're taking cheaper stuff from foreign sourced, low end grind stuff, and then we're shipping more value added, higher end stuff is what usually happens. I think this is a win for beef and corn.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I can only kind of parrot what I heard from our partners at the Cattlemen's Beef Association. That I mean, they were obviously as excited as we were. A lot of detail has to be hammered out. I know as recently as Monday, Secretary Rollins was in the UK. I would imagine that she was starting to hammer those details out. We haven't seen those, but I would much rather be mentioned in trade conversations and be in the center of some of these talks than not. And so we are back to where's all that corn going to go at the end of the year? The more that we can be included and mentioned in any of these deals, the better off we all feel.
No question. So sticking with trade, my friend Ryan Moe works for StoneX. He's understands commodities, an Iowa boy. He's all about this. And he said, the best hope we have for corn in the United States is that sustainable aviation fuel and ethanol are part of this package that Trump is asking/demanding from the European Union. He said, shut yourself off of Russian dependence, which they are, or worse yet, dependence from Middle Eastern countries, some of which are volatile to say the least. Buy energy from the United States, $350 billion this year. And my friend Ryan and I talked about it, and he says, imagine if just 5 to 10% of that, 17, whatever that number should be, has to be from crop based. That could be a huge game changer. How likely is it?
Well, I mean, the EU is going to be. I mean, all of this, is going to be a heavy lift. I mean, it's again, I'm thankful to be talking about actual scenarios instead of it's been. We haven't really talked about any trade deal for 5-6 years, and so
Right.
this is. I know that there's still a lot of trepidation about a trade war, but some of that is subsiding as we kind of get to some of these actual deals, and so the EU is going to be a tough one to crack
Because of protectionism.
yeah, for sure, and and they, I mean, they don't like, they don't like biofuels from corn and soy, and they definitely don't like biofuels from American crops. And so that will be, I mean, we do make a lot of sense, for the problems that they're wanting to address. Obviously climate is still, one of their biggest concerns.
Religions, we can call it what it is.
Religions,
Okay.
and we can do that, but they obviously they have they don't treat us well. So
Well,
I think
I shot a video about this, Neil. Maybe you saw it, where I said all trade problems aren't tariffs. Many of them are just policies and regulation and forms of protectionism. Remember, the European Union used safety and environmentalism as a reason to not take in genetically engineered food crops from the United States for years. And the reality was, two of the biggest agricultural companies in the world were in Europe, in fact, in Germany, and they didn't have GMO technology, which is why they pushed that whole messaging. They're doing the same thing again on energy. They're probably doing the same thing, that we don't need American biofuels because it's not proven for the environment or whatever. But they're kind of literally over the energy barrel. They've been getting their energy from Russia, which is actively at war with one of their neighboring countries. So I would think that of any time that they would be more accepting, the time is right.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, when we think about the markets that excite us the most, and so we are in a fortunate position where most of the corn that we produce is consumed here in the U.S. As animal feed and obviously ethanol. We export about 15%, but certainly we're going to continue to produce more corn, and so we're going to have to find overseas markets to find as a home for all that corn. The markets that we get excited about the most, India, for all the reasons that we've discussed and more. It's just a massive market that needs a lot of feed and fuel. We can do that. Vietnam is another one that we're excited about as well. I mean, they're a big buyer of corn. Unfortunately, most of it comes from Brazil. And so we know that, Vietnam is a priority market for the administration as well. And we're trying to position ourselves for a part of any deal that emerges there as well. And so UK is right up there. And so we are happy to kind of be in the game in these markets thus far.
So I want to talk to you about domestic demand because of what you just said. We only export a small percentage of what we produce. We just generally consume, I thought it was 80%. You said it's closer to 85% of our corn that we raise is consumed here. So really trade isn't as important to corn as to some other commodities, wheat, soybeans, pork at this point. But I want to ask you about domestic consumption here in a second. Before I do, I want to remind you about our friends from Harvest Returns. If you have an agribusiness and you need money, you know what? To expand, to grow, you sometimes need investment money. Well, if you're a ranch, you could be a farm, you could be an agribusiness. You don't have to worry about this. It doesn't have to be hard. Your operation's unique, so why should you try to fit a square peg into a round hole with one-size-fits-all ag credit? Yes, there's all kinds of ag lenders out there, but they like a template. They like the normal kind of lending. Yes, farm mortgages, whatever. What if you're a small company and you say, I want to quadruple in size, I need money? Go to friends at Harvest Returns. Harvest Returns has a pool of over 18,000 investors and creative financing options to help you reach your agribusiness objectives. Harvest Returns can bring the capital you need to achieve your goals. Go to harvestreturns.com to learn more about how you can get started and grow your operation today. That's harvestreturns.com. Domestic consumption. Because we're going to predicted to grow, Neil, so much corn, our percentage of it that goes to ethanol is going to decline. But that means we still got a boatload of corn. Can we consume that much here?
So yes, we absolutely can. I will say that despite all the activity around the world and obviously the trade war that we may or may not be in, the price of corn has held relatively steady. I mean, it's not at a, when I say steady, it's not at a good place. It's still in the mid fours, but it didn't bottom out the way that we feared because just the the stocks are tight here in the U.S. and around the globe. And so the good news is, there's still demand for corn, including here in the U.S. And so, we still see a lot of opportunity in ethanol here in the U.S. And so, E15 is a high priority of ours. The president gave us that. He changed the regulations that blocked us. That was however many 30, 40-year-old regulation that blocked consumers from having access to year-round E15 back in 2019. The courts, a couple years later, said that EPA didn't have the authority, and thankfully we've had waivers that allowed us to serve that market ever since. But that continues to be a problem that we are addressing. For every 1% increase in the blend rate equates to about a half a billion bushels in corn demand, and so that is one way that will allow us to continue to chip away at that pile, and looking at ways to create standards, octane standards that would result in higher, that E15 to kind of E20 blend as well. That might be a play for, I would say, the next, for lucky 5 to 7 years down the road. And then I think sustainable aviation fuel is one that we're really excited about, but realistically, that's not going to materialize, if the policy is right for probably another 10 years, if the stars align perfectly. And I should say that we did get some encouraging news yesterday when
You think we're a decade away from sustainable aviation fuel made of corn ethanol being a reality, and you think that's because of policy? We'll need the policy invented to require it, kind of like we did for ethanol with the renewable fuel standard, Neil? Or do you think it's just because the technology to make it? Or do you think that there's just no demand and there's not going to be the policy or the demand?
Yes. It's like a cop out, right? I mean, like it's about 3 to 5 times more expensive to produce a gallon of sustainable aviation fuel. I mean, that's a problem that we have to address, and the airlines are just not going to eat that. And no one's going to
3 to 5 times more expensive than the competitive, which would be Jet A fuel.
Yep. So it costs a lot more, and so that a lot of the policy is trying to figure out incentives that will kind of bring that more in line so that industry can take off. So the Inflation Reduction Act was 2022, had that 45Z tax incentive in there, and unfortunately didn't do anything with it until, still really haven't done anything with it.
Right, and that was to give tax credits for biofuel production, especially as then it pertained to SAF. But the problem is we're still a long way off. I didn't realize you're talking 3 times as expensive as Jet A.
Expensive.
It's going to take more than a little bit of a tax credit to make that come in line. So we need the technological advancement.
We need it all. I mean, like that's the delay, we didn't, and for whatever reason, the Biden administration really, I mean, they just, they were dragging their feet on implementing that law. And so, if you're planning to produce SAF, I mean, you're looking for that signal from the federal government before obviously you break any ground. And so we haven't seen that production. There isn't a lot of production because the policies are a little unclear right now, and so I don't think we're going to see that take off until we get some certainty. The Ways and Means Committee did extend. I mean, I think I would have at the beginning of this year. I mean, because it was born out of the IRA. I had to assume that 45Z was probably on death row with everything else, but it magically made its way into the Ways and Means mark, and it was approved in their bill the other day. And so we'll see how the big beautiful bill progresses from here. But at least right now, 45Z has new life, and so that's encouraging. And so hopefully that will some version of it will make it through to the final.
Domestic consumption. Obviously, a lot of beef is still raised using corn. We got the lowest beef herd numbers that we've had since the 60s. That's why your steaks are $16 a pound right now at the store. I don't know, probably more than that. I don't really buy steaks at the store, but I get them from my farmer friends. But That means we're eating less corn in the beef yards.
Yeah.
That's significant. Avian influenza, we've lost a couple 100 million hens. That's hens eat chicken. I'm sorry, hens eat corn to make eggs. Not nearly as much corn per day as the beef herd does, but for crying out loud, we got some livestock not eating corn because it ain't there. Is that significant?
I mean, it's certainly a challenge, just another headwind that we have to overcome. And I think, if those industries are looking at some of these trade opportunities as well, because obviously, we are one country, and everyone else lives outside of the U.S. and those that are in the developing world want more meat protein. And so good news is we can provide that to them if we have a level playing field. And so
we can provide them the corn to make their own meat, or we can provide them the corn to make. We can provide the meat that's made right here in the United States. We can process it, ship it to them, whatever. A couple of things. I'm a realist about the reality of our ag, and we're generally oversupplied. A lot of people think we're going to trade our way into $14 soybeans again. And I said, we're probably going to be about $10 because that's what the supply situation would dictate based on the demand. We might be there on corn. Are you an optimist? Or are you a little bit hedging your bets when it comes down to it and say this is about as much corn as we're probably going to need? We don't really need any more. Where are you on your? And I know you're the NCGA president. It's got to be a tough situation, or CEO. It's going to be a tough situation, but we run the risk of being pretty well oversupplied on a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah, I am optimistic. I mean, I think, the growth is going to come in two forms. And domestically, it's going to be in trying to get creative and how we can sell higher blends of ethanol. And so we have, but like in the short term, we are working with the petroleum industry on a year-round nationwide E15 solution. I mean, think back, Damian, to,
You're working with the petroleum industry.
You're working with petroleum.
It used to be when this whole thing came up 21 years ago, the renewable fuel standard, they would have blown up your headquarters. That Jeff Cooper, who's with the CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, he's obviously the ethanol guy. It'd be kind of a fun thing to see, maybe the CEO of Exxon and Cooper in a cage match. I mean, just for the fun of it, just because I want to see if Cooper and I know each other. He kind of fashioned himself as a quiet scrapper. I wonder if he really. What do you think? Who'd win?
Well, I know Jeff professionally and personally, and so I don't know that I would want to. He's an old Army guy.
Yeah, that's what I said. He thinks he's kind of a scrapper. You think he's just going with the former Army guy tough thing, or do you think he's really tough? That's what I always wonder.
That's a good question. So I think Damon, you should totally call him out on that. And so,
I just did. I'm going to make sure that he watches this episode and knows what we're talking about. So back to the other part of this. We've got plenty of corn. Yeah, it's I know ethanol has obviously been almost 40% of our demand picture. I'm going to be a little less than that when we're growing this much in 2025. I've got a couple of other contemplations I've thrown out in other conversations. Do you see where corn ends up being more categorized as opposed to just everything is number 2, 56 pounds per bushel, yellow corn? Do you see ever a time where there's corn that's for ethanol and then corn that ends up for humans? Because there's not the same amount of GMO resistance as there once was, but there's this angle that we could make corn better. I don't know, nutrient content. Maybe it's got a protein increase. I don't know. Keratin. I mean, start naming all these things. Do you ever see corn being differentiated?
I mean, I think you could argue that, in a sense, we're headed down that path. I mean, think going back to just using SAF as an example and the sustainable aviation fuel, those tax credits. And so, there's some requirements, obviously that you've got to, if I can use the word climate smart agriculture. And so, in a way that, if a lower CI corn, low carbon corn, in a way is already, and there are markets that exist today.
That was the idea with the 45Z, was that if you could prove that there was less carbon and lowest carbon intensity to produce this bushel of corn. Then you got a tax credit, et cetera. So that goes to like the sustainability of production. What about the actual product itself? Do you see us ever? We worked really hard at commoditizing corn from the time of the when it was maize to today. Do you ever see that happening? Because I've got a hunch that I can see it a little bit on this traceability, push for nutrition, those kinds of things. I see it as a value added opportunity, but I'm not sure that the infrastructure is there to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is like, if I asked my board that, I mean, they're like, hey, tell me what the market wants and we'll do it.
Yeah, right.
They'll figure out a way. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on we've got a system, that incentivizes more. We do that. We're thankfully, we're in a situation where stocks are tight.
Our incentive system has essentially been unchanged for a long, long time. Go produce more, go produce more. And it's not been go produce differently, meaning the product. They do produce it differently because we're better at the conservation, but we haven't changed corn fundamentally.
There's no market signal, farmers, Damian, if you give them an opportunity,
they'll grow it.
Grow it. They will. If that were to materialize, that could be exciting. I can see a potential down the road where, we are creating, designer corn or however you want to frame it. But right now, just the market is wants commodity corn, and so that's what our folks are really good at producing.
Last category question. You're in all these circles. So am I. I talk to ag people from all over the place. So do you. You talk to corn producers in particular. You talk to corn people that are honestly in corn. Number one ingredient in a lot of stuff: sweeteners, corn syrup, processed food. There's this guy that's kind of making some noise in Washington, D.C. You may have heard of him. His name is RFK Jr. And I'd say that if there was one commodity that, well, there's about three. Sugar has a bullseye on it. Seed oils, which was a term I never even really heard used in the common vernacular until about 6 months ago, meaning generically all vegetable oil, and most of what we consume in the United States is derived from soy, corn, sunflower, or canola. Corn's not as bad as sugar or soy, but I'd say you're third in line to get beat on by RFK Jr. What are the discussions like behind doors about the RFK effect on corn in the United States?
I would say our deeper concerns are what will he be allowed to do with pesticides? Obviously, those, on the demand side, those are things that we do care about. Now, sweeteners and, corn, high fructose corn syrup is a pretty small portion of our overall demand, but we certainly we do care about it. What we're really concerned about is what does he do on pesticides? The tools that are proven to be safe that we need to produce a crop of any size and scale. Coincidentally, and I don't know, that the Make America Healthy Again Commission assessment is coming out in the coming days, and so I'm told that it is kind of just kind of scopes or frames the problem at least as they see it. I say probably he, meaning RFK Jr., and that's going to be coming out in the coming days, and we expect to be kind of T-boned by that report. Heavily on the pesticide side. So, we are are sending up flares that we have deep concerns. Obviously, these are crop protection tools are the ones that we use are proven to be safe and effective, and we're more concerned about what we're going to see there. But the whole Make America Healthy Again, and we are on board with the idea of making Americans healthy. I think that's a good conversation that we should be having for sure. When you get into the narrative of the role that big bad agriculture plays, we take umbrage with that.
Yeah, demonization, but that's the thing. I can get on board with RFK looking around at the state of America's health, and I don't disagree with most of his assessment. I do disagree with most of his many of his methods of activism, because activism, you usually create the enemy, and the enemy is what your cause is now against. And it seems like I said, corn's right behind soybeans, which is right behind sugar, and corn also doubles as sugar and sweeteners and corn and high fructose corn syrup. Get me out of here. What else do I need to know about corn? You said you're still optimistic. I get a little concerned about when I hear the numbers. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of it.
Yeah, it's May, and I think a farmer is never more optimistic than they are during this month. When hopefully they're getting a crop in the ground. But I am encouraged, and it's because of despite the headwinds that we're facing and some of the choppiness that the trade war has created for corn farmers and just agriculture in general. It's good to see deals like the UK announce, and it's good to be included in those as well. It's also very good to be working with former enemies like the American Petroleum Institute on a solution for ethanol. When you have those things working in your favor, it's hard not to be optimistic about where that corn is going to be. And so we do have, we're blessed to have a lot of bipartisan support for corn farmers, and certainly the policies that they need out in Washington, D.C. We're buoyed by that. And because of all that, I sit here on May 15th in a rather optimistic position about the world of corn right now, Damian.
Yeah, and I think you've got some initiatives, and honestly, I think we've heard more. There's more political attention to agriculture right now than there's been in a while, and it could be because we're in a second year of kind of a stagnation, if you will, or it could be just because the Secretary of Agriculture. It could be a few things. I'm not sure, or the trade, because obviously ag gets used so much as a tool or a weapon or a token or a playing card within trade. And I think that's the other reason.
Well, I'm told that the Sonny Perdue, the ag secretary from the first go round, anytime he went in a meeting with the president, he always brought a map. And so, you got the old the red and blue. And so, we know how he got elected then and more recently in 2024. And it's not. Obviously, he enjoys a broad base of support among agriculture, and certainly the Corn Belt. Now, I'm told that Sonny Perdue would always show him that map of where his support exists, and I think that really sunk in with the president. You've heard him talk about his support for farmers, and we've seen that in his cabinet secretaries and talking about deals and the need for fairness among farmers. And so again, we're heartened by that talk as well.
His name's Neil Caskey. He's the CEO of the National Corn Growers Association in Chesterfield, Missouri. Not even really one of the corn producing estates. I think that we should have probably thought about that. I mean, you'd think they would have put them in Des Moines or something, but anyway, I wasn't in charge of the decision. Actually
both corn and soy were originally in Iowa back in the 50s, and they moved they moved to St. Louis of all places because they wanted to have access to international markets. I don't know if you've been to St. Louis in a while. Our airport isn't necessarily.
I was going to say I'm not sure that STL is much better than the DSM. And if you fly a lot like me, you know what those airport codes are. His name's Neil Caskey. If you want to learn more about it, where do they? National Corn Growers Association has a website. What is it? What's the website?
NCGA.com. We'd love to have you come visit.
Go check it out. You can follow him on LinkedIn like I do. Till next time, thanks for being here. If you've enjoyed this, please go check out my other stuff, The Grading Show with my friends at XtremeAg. Also, hit subscribe on my YouTube channel. Really want to grow that and share this with somebody I can learn from it. Also, remember my good friends that make this show possible, Harvest Returns, Redox, and also Newfields Ag. Till next time, I'm Damian Mason. This is The Business of Agriculture. Hey, sincere thanks for joining us here on another episode of The Business of Agriculture. I want to ask you, if you farm, are you looking for more productive efficiencies to grow higher yielding, better performing crops? Well, of course you are. Newfields Ag provides a complete portfolio of biological products focused on you, the farmer. If you want to learn more about the Newfields Ag product lineup, go to newfieldsag.com for information.